Okay, now I'm doing What If Issei Was the Bioweapon, Part 5. So Issei, he has just engaged in a battle with Mal. Mal has turned into his nemesis form. Issei is about to turn into his form. Issei decides, if I do this, I can probably beat Mal, but I might go berserk. Should I do it? He's contemplating. And Mal's not going to wait for this. Mal just charges at him before he goes into his form, and ends up saying, if you don't go into it, I guess I'll just kill you before you can. And he's charging incredibly fast, breaking the sound barrier completely, and is in front of Issei before he could even think about going into his form. He gets punched through the chest, straight through. His heart's ripped out, and the nemesis kicks him in the face at the exact same time. And Issei is flying out of Kohai. He's starting to fly out of Kohai, but his flesh wings catch him, and he sonic booms forward in front of the nemesis, which is known as Mal. Punches Mal in the face, but all that happens is his face moves slightly to the side, and then he just moves it backwards, while his fist is still planted on the side, and it breaks Issei's fist completely off. His hand is completely gone from just that one movement in his jaw from when he punched. And Issei is thinking, yep, we're gonna have to use it. He jumps back, but Mal's already behind him now. Mal just instantly punches his back 15 separate times in a few seconds. And Issei's just coughing up blood. Rias and her barrage is seeing this, and they don't know whether to cheer for Issei or to cheer for Mal. Because on one hand, Mal looks like a menace right now. But on the other hand, well, he's a powerful member of Rias' barrage, is what Rias is thinking. But she doesn't know that if Mal wins, yeah, a lot of stuff's going to get destroyed. Because Mal's actual goal is world domination. And, well, just so you know, Kiba is wondering how the hell Issei got so strong. And how is Mal so strong, and what is that form that Mal's in? Why does he look so grotesque? Why does he look so monstrous? And Mal, while he's punching Issei about 15 times in quick succession, on his knuckles there's mouths growing, and they're biting into Issei's skin, ripping Issei's skin off, and chewing it. And Issei flies forward from all the impacts, and he's on the ground in front of the Kohai. He gets up, and she starts to transform, and Mal just rushes them, saying, you think I'm going to give you some time to transform into your form? Hell no. And he's trying to punch Issei, but Issei's already in his form. Issei's form happened very quickly. Issei is about growing consistently. He's still going into his form, but he's good enough to still fight. He punched Mal in the face so hard that he flung straight out of Kohai onto the streets. And Issei is just growing continuously. He's about 7 foot tall, and he's rushing towards Mal at blinding speeds. Mal cannot keep up with this currently until his eyes start to adjust to the speed. And he realizes he's lost track of Issei. Where's Issei exactly? And all of a sudden, his point of view is upside down. Issei had just gotten on his shoulders and snapped his neck. And the worst part is, Mal didn't even notice this. Mal just jumps in the air and slams his back against the ground, making Issei's legs shatter. And Mal grabs Issei's right leg and flings him all the way back into Kohai, while Issei is still transforming. His legs are regenerating. He's growing bigger and bigger. He's very bulky right now. He's getting huge. He's about 15 foot tall and still growing at rapid paces. And his skin is turning completely violet red, with some of these tendrils coming out of him, and these mouths all over his body, and the tongues popping out. And Mal is rushing towards him, trying to kill him before he can transform, because Mal knows he cannot beat him while he's transformed. The only thing is, Issei's berserk when he transforms, so he can make him kill his own friends before he dies, because Mal knows that he's going to die if he fights him like this. So Mal rushes forward in front of Issei, who's still transforming, and all of a sudden, the mouths that are all over Issei's body, just the tongues extend out and they start piercing into Mal. They pierce into his sides. They go towards his kidneys and they're wrapping around them. And they're ripping them out of his body. And Mal screams out in pain, but is still managing to stand up from just sheer will. And he's punching Issei dead in the face. It hits Issei in the face, but Issei just unfazed and opens his mouth and bites down and rips off Mal's right hand and just starts chewing it. And Mal's trying to regenerate, but for some reason it's not regenerating. None of the injuries he's sustaining are regenerating. And Issei, who was supposed to be in berserk mode, just says, "It's not regenerating because I'm not letting you regenerate." I don't think you've noticed this, but remember when your little mouths bit my hand and you ate some of the flesh? Well, I can control all my flesh, so I controlled it to where it would go into your bloodstream and stop your regeneration abilities. And Issei just says, "I can use this partial form without going berserk, and I'll just use this form to kill you. I don't even need to get in the full form." And he says this in a deep, dark voice. And he just literally is livid right now. And Mal is terrified. Rias and Kiba are pointing towards Issei saying, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that creature? And is that actually Issei or is that someone else? There's no way Issei could be this strong. There's no way he could look so grotesque either." Ugh, is what Rias says. And Issei just looks back at them, gives them this one death stare, like, "You're next." And they give the "I'm about to shit my pants" face. And Issei, like, once Rias said that, Kiba just said, I already did." And Rias just slides away from Kiba. Alright, so back to Issei. Issei just looks back towards Mal. Sonic booms himself towards Mal's face, puts his hand on his face, and starts ripping his head off. And Mal just regenerates it slightly, but it's very slow. He's forcing his regeneration out. And before he can regenerate, Issei just says, "How about this? If I just destroy your body before you can regenerate, then I should be good." And he pulls out Albion and says, "Albion, let's do the move we practiced." And he puts his hand straight towards where Mal is. And Mal puts out his booster gear towards where he thinks that Issei is. And he says, dividing blast. And he ends up having a small little ball of energy in the palm of his hand. And he fires it. And when he fires it, he goes directly towards Mal. Mal ends up charging his actual Dragon Blast. I'm sorry about that. You know what? Mal ends up charging his Dragon Blast. And, well, he's boosting at the same time, trying to make it bigger than Issei's. But no, Issei has his partial form in. And this partial form boosts his strength immensely. So even though he's boosting 10 times in a few seconds, he needs to get 25 or so to actually match it. But he wasn't able to because it happened in a flash and he wasn't charging his actual move. So the blast goes straight through his Dragon Blast, and it's rushing towards Mal, and Mal's saying, shit, and then he explodes. And you can only see nothing. You can see nothing but ashes. And Issei is trying to look around to see if there's any flesh, because Mal is regeneration type mostly. Because if he, has a single bit of flesh, he can regenerate his entire body. It might take him a few months, but if he regenerates his entire body again, he might get stronger than before. So he's scouting the area, and he doesn't see any piece of flesh, so he isn't really worried about this. He looks at the pile of ashes and says, looks like I did a number on you, Mal. And he just kicks the pile of ashes and scatters them everywhere. And he walks up towards Azazel, puts him on his shoulder, looks at the Rias barrage, and looks at Rias Grimmery and Kiba directly. And he just says, I'm gonna kill you both. Also, if you're wondering if I'm gonna do that later or now, I think this will answer your question. And with Azazel on his back, Issei just instantly disappears from everyone's sight. And he's right behind Kiba, and he wheels his fist backwards. Kiba's looking behind him in slow motion. His eyes are flashing before his eyes. And Issei just punches straight through Kiba's chest and rips out his heart and tears off. As soon as Kiba gets on the ground on his knees, Issei just tears off his head in front of everyone, and all the Rias barrage just screaming, and Rias is just mentally fucked. She's wondering if she's next, and Issei points towards Rias and says, you ready for your turn? Because you're about to go next right now. And as soon as Issei's slowly walking up towards her, she falls to the ground. She's begging and kneeling before Issei, begging for him not to kill her, and just saying it was Kiba's idea to get rid of you from the barrage. It wasn't ever my idea. And Issei says, that's bullshit. It was your idea to get rid of me from the barrage and kill me to get rid of me. And now I'm going to get rid of you. And he charges his Dragon Blast, and Rias does not want to go down smoothly, so she just charges her Destruction Magic and starts charging it and firing at Issei. And Issei just immediately does one Dragon Blast, and it goes through Rias' Destruction Magic. And Rias dodges last second, and it blows off her right arm. And she's screaming and wailing in pain, trying to crawl away with her left arm, because she can't really stand up currently. And Issei looks at her and just says, you're pathetic. And he turns his right hand to have claws out of it. He makes his right hand have claws, and then he claws off Rias' left leg, then her right leg, while Rias is screaming in agony, and the rest of the barrage is watching this horrifying display. They're crying, begging for Issei not to do it. And Issei just looks at them and says, shut up or you'll be next. And you guys are screaming and begging for them not to do it, but what happened when I was in trouble? When I needed you? What did you guys do? And then they all grew silent. And Issei said, correct, you guys did nothing. So do nothing while I do this. And he, after removing both of the legs, the right arm, removes the left arm, walks up towards Rias closer, picks up the head, and says, Rias, I think I'll forgive you now, but I gotta do one more thing. And Rias is just crying and saying, I'll do anything, just don't kill me. And she's begging for her life. Because limbs, she could get those regenerated by a house servant. But no. Her eyes ended up popping out of her skull when she said one more thing. And she's curious what that thing is. As long as it's not her life, she's willing to give anything. Is what she says. And Issei says, I'll just take your head. And Reese's eyes just start to widen. And she says, no, don't do. And before she could even say anything, you could hear the tearing sound of her head coming clean off. And her screams before Issei tears off the head. And Reese is still talking while the head's completely removed. And her last words are, Issei Kyoto, my brother will make your life a hell. And Issei just throws Reese's head up in the air. And once it's about to hit the ground, he kicks that bitch all the way out of Kohai. Scene cut. Some guy's driving home from work, and all of a sudden, this head just crashes into the windshield, and he just says, What the fuck? And we're gonna see him cut back to Issei. Issei now just walks away with Azazel like a badass, and starts to walk home. And he looks at the barrage and says, if any of you try to do anything that they did to me, I will kill all of you in a horrendous death. And he walks home with Azazel on his back. And he starts laughing to himself that he did that. And Azazel, who's on Issei's back, is starting to wake up. But Issei's already at the front of his house. He opens the door, he goes up to his room, and opens the door right beside his room, and throws Azazel into his bed. And then he closes the door, walks towards his bedroom, opens it, and hops on his bed, and goes to sleep. And that's where I'm going to end What If Issei Was a Bioweapon, Part 5. I hope you enjoyed. I may do a redo of this, but alright, so goodbye.